The Holy Gospel according to Luke, the 16th chapter, the Message translation. Jesus said to his disciples, "There was once a rich man who had a manager. He got reports that the manager had been taking advantage of his position by running up huge personal expenses. So he called him in and said, 'What's this I hear about you? You're fired, and I want a complete audit of your books.' The manager said to himself, 'What am I going to do? I've lost my job as manager. I'm not strong enough for a laboring job, and I'm too proud to beg. I've got a plan. Here's what I'll do. Then, when I'm turned out into the street, people will take me into their houses.' Then he went at it. One after another, he called on the people who were in debt to his master. He said to the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' He replied, 100 jugs of olive oil.' The manager said, 'Here, take your bill, sit down here. Quick, now, write 50. To the next, he said, 'And you, what do you owe?' He answered, 100 sacks of wheat. He said, 'Take your bill, write in 80. Now here's a surprise. The master praised the crooked manager. And why? Because he knew how to look after himself. Streetwise people are smarter in this regard than law-abiding citizens. They are on constant alert, looking for angles, surviving by their wits. I want you to be smart in the same way, but for what is right, using every adversity to stimulate you to creative survival, to concentrate your attention on the bare essentials, so you'll live, really live, and not complacently just get by on good behavior." Jesus went on to make these comments. "If you're honest in small things, you'll be honest in big things. If you're a crook in small things, you'll be a crook in big things. If you're not honest in small jobs, who will put you in charge of the store? No worker can serve two bosses. He'll either hate the first and love the second, or adore the first and despise the second. You can't serve both God and money." When the Pharisees, a money-obsessed bunch, heard him say these things, they rolled their eyes, dismissing him as hopelessly out of touch. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Have you ever lost a job? Have you ever been downsized? I've thankfully never been fired from a job, but I have had my position eliminated. When I was working as a high school teacher, I had a position as a 2/3 time English teacher. But this was in 2008 when the economy took a dive and the school district decided not to renew my position for the next year. So I was able to cobble together some long-term sub-jobs and some other sub-positions for a while, but no one was hiring teachers with only a year or two of experience. So, after feeling sorry for myself and lamenting, just being sad about the whole system for a while, being sad about the loss of a job I enjoyed, I decided to take a different approach. I realized that in terms of interviewing for jobs, I had nothing left to lose. What could happen if I interviewed for a random job and they said no? Well, I'd still be without a job. I went into my next interview not lamenting the job I had lost, but thinking, you know what? You'd be foolish not to hire me. The loss of a job can be devastating, and it can truly put lives in danger. If you're going through that now, I hope you have a support system. I hope you're able to reach out to friends and family, and if not, I hope you reach out to your church. But the loss of a job can also bring a sense of freedom and opportunity and a change of perspective. When I first glanced at this text earlier this week, I was not excited about it. The rich man in this story, the absentee landlord, fires his manager, and then the manager gives people a discount, and then the rich absentee landlord is happy about it? Also, you can't serve God and money? What are you trying to say here, Jesus? What is this all about? You want us to be dishonest in our dealings? Is cleverness rewarded above honesty? So I don't think Jesus wants us to be dishonest. We have to remember that this is a parable, and a parable is not always as easy as do exactly as this character does. So let's take a closer look. First, the manager has been dishonest. He's been cooking the books. His boss, the rich absentee landlord, gets wind of it and says, "That's it, you're fired, you're out." So the manager who's been fired sits down and considers his options. I'm not strong enough to labor. I'm not going to beg. So he could continue to work the system and find ways to cheat other people only for himself, making money off of others. But instead, it seems that in this story, the manager, however small, has a change of heart. He changes his perspective. Instead of cheating people out of money, he decides to give them a discount and gives what he collects to the landlord. This manager is still doing the work, but seeing that he has nothing to lose with the landlord who's already fired him, he collects what he can, giving the people a discount. And the landlord is just happy that he got something instead of nothing. Now, it's always tempting to make the landlord the Lord, making the landlord into God in these parables, but that's not always the case. We have to be careful saying that the landlord's God. What's critical here is that the manager is faithful in what he collects instead of continuing his dishonesty. He's changed his perspective from gaining as much as he can from the working people to giving them the grace of a discount. Another thought about this story, one of the people in the story gets a 20% discount and the other gets a 50% discount. Now, how is that fair? Where's the justice in that, Jesus? Again, remember, this is a parable, and this is also a parable about grace. How much grace do we need? Some people seem to get all the grace. Why don't I get any? God's grace isn't always fair because we don't all need the same thing at the same time. This parable comes right after the parables of the lost coin, the lost sheep, and the lost son. This is still Jesus saying that God's justice, God's accounting, doesn't look like our accounting. God doesn't cut losses and let people go. God seeks out the one who needs the most help. God deals in grace. And that's what the dishonest manager does. He's beginning to do the work of God's grace, meeting people where they are, allowing grace to happen in tangible ways in people's lives. Now, if we look at this story from an economic perspective, it's laughable to us, right? Have you heard of a landlord just cutting the rent just because? Does the bank just give you a 50% discount just because I had a hard time this week? Well, it was probably laughable in Jesus' day too. This story is ridiculous. God's grace is ridiculous. And that's why it's so amazing. Today, Blair Lutheran and NBC Lutheran churches gather to worship together as the community celebrates Cheese Fest. It's a chance for us, like the dishonest manager, to remember that what is important isn't making money, isn't gathering offering, or making one more ministry, or to decide which building we like the best. But it's a chance for us to come together as a community, recognizing that what church is all about is making connections with God and with our neighbors in that loving grace. As Jesus says, we can't do the work of grace serving God if we're only serving wealth, if we're only focusing on gaining more and more for me, for us. Church is all about grace. Being a Christian is all about grace. Not about keeping account of what's gone on before, or making sure you get that last 1%, or getting one more for me. Being the church is like getting fired and having nothing left to lose. Being the church is about changing your perspective. It's about living your life, giving people a discount, giving them space to mess up and loving them anyway. Being the church is inviting one another into that grace in our churches, in our jobs, in our relationships, and in every part of our lives. Friends, I pray that we live like we are free to give one another a discount. May we live like we have nothing left to lose and only grace and abundant life to gain. Amen.